Ohio voters seem fired up and COVID cases remain high. Joining us on Columbus on the Record this week, Laura Bischoff, State House reporter for the Dayton Daily News, Bob Clegg, Republican strategist, and Morgan Harper, progressive activist. Election month has arrived in Ohio, and Ohio voters seem to be excited to cast ballots early. Record numbers lined up at early voting sites around the state this week. Hundreds of thousands of mail-in ballots were sent out. The latest poll shows President Trump and Joe Biden basically tied in Ohio. Mike Pence, the vice president, is set to visit Columbus on Monday. This week, he shared a civil debate stage with his Democratic rival, Kamala Harris.
The greatest failure of any presidential administration in the history of our country. I want to ask the American people, how calm were you when you were panicked about where you're going to get your next roll of toilet paper? How calm were you when your kids were sent home from school and you didn't know when they could go back?
The difference here is President Trump and I trust the American people to make choices in the best interest of their health. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris consistently talk about mandates. We're about freedom and respecting the freedom of the American people.
So a civil debate this week, which was a refreshing change from the week before. Anyway, Morgan Harper, long lines at the Franklin County Board of Elections facility on Morris Road. Other counties report long lines as well. Democrats seem to be excited. Many of those voters were Democrats. Will that excitement last until Election Day?
I think so, because people are not only excited, they're scared. This administration's management of the coronavirus, or mismanagement, I should say, is making people very, very uncomfortable. And we've seen the deaths that have happened. And so, and all the other issues with the administration as well, I think folks know that we have to have a change if we're going to be able to protect our health and our economy.
Bob Clegg, early voting can be deceiving because, the polls show and tradition shows that Democrats tend to get out and vote early absentee, either by mail or in person, and Republicans show up on Election Day. Will Republicans be able to match the enthusiasm we're seeing so far?
Well, if you want to trust the polls are showing that Republicans have a higher level of enthusiasm for President Trump than the Democrats do for Joe Biden. So I'm not real concerned about that. I think the Democrats are going to end up cannibalizing their vote in that they're going to have all their votes coming in early, and they aren't going to have that many people voting on Election Day.
Laura Bischoff, this was no surprise really to election officials when they sort of got the applications for absentee votes, but still it was striking to see those lines. Keep in mind those lines were made to look longer because people were keeping 6 feet apart, but still they were long.
Right, and I'm hearing the same thing, that the lines are spaced out for social distancing, but they're moving pretty rapidly. And I think that it is true that the early voting trends more among Democrats than it does for Republicans. However, this is a different year with this COVID outbreak. There's a lot of people that are very concerned about going to the polls on Election Day. And Frank LaRose, the Secretary of State, released some data earlier this week that showed that 2.1 million people had requested absentee ballots across the state. That's a little more than double the number that were requested 4 years ago at this point.
Bob Clegg, you've seen a lot of elections. With the economy is always number one, and I think that's Donald Trump's strongest argument. That was his strongest segment of the debate from a week and a half ago. But the coronavirus just it's a story that is with us. It will not go away, and his going to the hospital last week certainly kept it on the front page and the top of everyone's mind. Which topic will prevail in this election, do you think, COVID or the economy?
Well, it depends on who you talk to. If you talk to Republicans, they'll say it's jobs and the economy. If you talk to Democrats, they say it's COVID. It's just depends on your perspective. And I mean, if you look at what the polls are saying, the plurality of people are saying jobs/economy, only because because of COVID, the economy went down quickly, but the good news is it's coming back quickly. So we already have unemployment under 8%, when it was just 5-6 months ago was 14, 15, 16%. So I think in the end, it's going to be jobs in the economy.
Morgan Harper, the Chicago Tribune had a story this week that showed that activists, African American activists in 3 key Midwestern cities, Detroit, Milwaukee, and Cleveland, were worried that African Americans, blacks, were not going to turn out as Democrats hope. What is the level of enthusiasm for Joe Biden among African Americans from what you have heard and what you've experienced?
Well, I think it has not so much to do with enthusiasm, but again, what we don't want. And I think coming out of the debates, both the presidential and the vice president debate, we saw that both Pence and Trump will not admit to systemic racism, will not denounce white supremacy, and also, most importantly, will not commit to a peaceful transfer of power. So I think you're going to see a lot of Black voters that are and voters of all stripes, really, including Republicans, who are very, very unwilling to continue to enable this administration and will therefore go for Joe Biden.
Laura Bischoff, we've covered several cycles of presidential races in Ohio over the past, 20 years or so. And presidential candidates make a lot of visits to Ohio, not so much this year. COVID's part of it, but Mike Pence is making a visit Monday. Joe Biden's been here maybe once in the past few months, and then one was for the debate, then he took a train to Pennsylvania. So it's been an odd campaign for Ohioans as far as being the center of attention for candidates. Will that continue for the next 2.5, 3 weeks?
Absolutely. I don't see any big uptick in terms of rallies. The president could come to Ohio and have a big rally. That wouldn't be unthinkable. However, I think that Ohio's status as the ultimate swing state is kind of, that train has left the station. Now the focus is more on Michigan, Wisconsin, Arizona. Ohio is rated as a toss-up. And what's curious is that the Trump campaign has been pulling ads and not, kind of conserving its money in Ohio. And it makes me wonder if they have different polling data, internal polling data that tells a different story, or if they're just looking to spend their money in other states where maybe they have a better chance.
Bob Clegg, you buy television ads for campaigns for a living. How do you read the Trump campaign not buying many ads at all, if at all, in Ohio?
Well, I think the bottom line is they feel good about Ohio. They don't feel like they have to. Ohio's a pretty big state. I mean, we have 18 electoral votes. If they thought that there was any chance they might lose those 18, they would be here before they would be in Arizona. Remember, Hillary Clinton spent $54.5 million in Ohio. Trump spent 18.9, and he won by the biggest margin of any presidential candidate since 1988. He's somewhere around 5-6 points up in Ohio. I think they feel pretty good about that. So my guess is you're not going to see any Trump ads here in Ohio.
So is that internal polling you're citing there? Because the public polling shows them basically neck and neck.
Yeah, but even in that polling, 4 years ago at this time, Hillary Clinton was up on President Trump by 2.1% here in Ohio. Today, as of today, Real Clear Politics average is 0.6 for Biden. And if you pull a Fox News poll from the middle of last month, which showed him up by 5, which is an outlier, actually the president's up by 0.5% here in Ohio as of today. And that's obviously much better than where he was 4 years ago, and he won the state handily. So I think they look at all of that and they go, we're not that concerned right now about Ohio.
Bob, one more polling question, then we'll move on. But one of the questions from the New York Times poll that caught my eye was it asked respondents in Ohio, who would your spouse vote for? And Donald Trump holds an 11-point lead among respondents of that question. So what's the purpose of that question and what does it tell you?
Well, I think the purpose of that question is that, they're trying to get that shy Trump vote. And I'm seeing that across the board on many different national polls where they're asking individuals, who do you think your neighbors are voting for? Or who do you think, even though you may not be voting for the person, who do you think is going to win the election? And President Trump is always on top. So I don't know if it's just people, trying to remember he came out of nowhere in 2016 and he'll do it again this time, or if it's really an indication of where people are at.
Morgan Harper, does that worry you when you see that number, that possibly the shy vote is out there, just not not answering Trump on the first question, but later down into the poll, they're saying, yeah, well, maybe my wife or my husband, my partner is going to vote for Donald Trump.
Yeah, I mean, I think if 2016 taught us nothing, it's that we can't often predict the outcome of elections. But look, I mean, I interpret the polling of ads in a different way. I don't think there's a lot of clarity on any messaging that Trump is giving that is working. Corona continues to be the top story, and they don't have an answer for it, right? They don't have an answer for how poorly they manage this virus and compromise the lives of hundreds of thousands of Americans. And so I think we'll continue to see Biden build on this lead as more and more people get out and vote.
Yeah, that poll, the New York Times poll, did show that Ohioans by a clear majority say that they trust Joe Biden more on the pandemic, but also a clear majority of Ohioans trust Donald Trump on the economy. So we'll see which issue plays out when the votes are counted on November 3rd. Even with months to prepare for what we knew was going to be a huge number of people voting by mail, early voting began with serious glitches and legal fighting. First to the glitches. In Franklin County, many absentee voters, 50,000 about, got wrong ballots due to a malfunction in a sorting machine. But county officials promised to try again and send out new correct ballots to those affected.
Let me assure you, no vote will be counted twice, and every voter will receive an accurate ballot, and that ballot will be counted.
In other counties, printing machines could not keep up with the large number of mail-in ballots, so some ballots will be delayed about a week. On the legal front, the state and the counties are still fighting over drop boxes for absentee ballots. We'll get to that saga in a moment. But Bob Clegg, President Trump is already claiming that Ohio's election is rigged because of this glitch in Franklin County. It's not rigged, it's just a mess up. They said they're going to fix it. But will Republicans be using this should Ohio's vote be contested?
Maybe. I mean, the problem we have here is the fact that the boards of elections are local boards of elections, and each county has their own. And it's one of the last vestiges of political patronage in our system. Now, there are equal numbers of Democrats and Republicans, but they aren't necessarily, election experts. They are good party members, and each of these county boards are only as good as the people that they have there. So it's always a mixed bag when you're dealing with this. So, you're going to have these problems. I mean, there's no way around it.
Laura Bischoff, when you have as many, 150 million voters cast ballots in a national election, there's always going to be a problem. But is this a bad sign? Is this a big number, 50,000 in one county and some delays in other counties, or is this just to be expected because of the onslaught of mail-in votes and we're just getting started?
It's probably all of the above. I think that, blowing 49,669 ballots, having the wrong ones go to people, and that's like 21% of the ballots that were mailed out were incorrect. That's a major screw up.
Yeah.
And it undermines the confidence that people have in the system. And that you can't really put a price tag on that. And I think that, some of it is because there's so many requests coming in. It's like I said before, it's more than double what it had been 4 years ago. And I think that it is a human run system, and there's a lot of moving parts to it. So things can get messed up. But I do think that the risk is that those screw ups can be used later to mount legal challenges and to somehow paint the results as illegitimate or incorrect, et cetera. And we've already seen the president has been tweeting and talking about this in public statements and during the debate about that he has a lot of doubts about voter fraud and whether or not the results will be good.
Morgan Harper, does this dampen, the first week has been good as far as turnout for early voting, but we have, 3 weeks to go. Will people have less trust to mail in that ballot over the next 3 weeks because of what happened here in Franklin County?
Yeah, I mean, Look, one, it was a contractor. I think the technological error that led to this mistake. I have a lot of faith in the people working at the board's election to fix it. They already said they're going to list every voter that received the mistaken ballot and get them a new one automatically. But also people can early vote. But I completely agree with what Laura was just saying, though. I mean, the president is just trying to sow confusion, right? He knows that most of these ballots went to Democrats, so it's not actually trying to rig the election against his favor. But we should take his language quite seriously, that he will probably do anything possible to retain power, and that will include questioning the will of the people if it results in him losing.
Laura Bischoff, to the ballot box saga, the story that just will not go away. There was a pretty clear ruling this week. A federal judge said that Frank LaRose seems to be arbitrarily saying that counties cannot have more than one drop box in a county in more than one location, but it looks like Frank LaRose is going to appeal it. What's the latest on this? Will it change before Election Day, before early voting is well underway, I guess?
Well, typically election cases do get kind of expedited treatment in the courts because it's just so time sensitive. U.S. District Court Judge Dan Polster up in Cleveland reopened the case and said that yes, counties can have extra drop box sites. The issue for voters in heavily populated areas is that there's only, one or maybe a handful of boxes at one site for hundreds of thousands of voters to use. And in sparsely populated areas, the issue can be that it can be a really long drive to a county seat. And so anyway, I think that this is an issue that Democrats and voting rights groups will continue to push. So yeah, I don't think it's dead yet.
Bob Clegg, should Frank LaRose just say, okay, we got a judge's ruling, you can have the drop boxes? Why is he putting a stake in the ground on this? This seems to be a relatively easy, non-controversial thing, but he's going to the mat on it. He's continuing to appeal. Is that wise from a political standpoint?
Political standpoint, yeah. I mean, I think what he's trying to do is ensure the integrity of everybody's vote. And what he's saying is, number one, he doesn't have legal authority to do this because they don't address, the legislature's never addressed the whole issue of drop boxes. So he's saying, I don't have legislative or legal authority to do this. And number two, his concerns are about the fact that if you have 15, 20, 25, 30 different drop box locations in a county, how do you secure those locations? How do you know there won't be tampering done? Do you have to take county board employees, one Republican, one Democrat, to have them stand at every single drop box, for 24 hours or for how long? I mean, it's all about the integrity of the ballot. And until there's a system in place that ensures that, and he doesn't have that because they didn't ever plan on having multiple drop box locations, that's why he's fighting this.
Morgan Harper, isn't that legit though? You have a drop box, even if they're at libraries, there is more boxes, more risk for mischief, for a leak, for rain get into these boxes, that kind of thing. Isn't that a legitimate reason to only have one, maybe two at one spot?
No, I don't think it's legitimate at all. I think this is about voter suppression. The amount of time that Frank LaRose has spent fighting this, he could have implemented the very type of plan that Bob's describing that would have ensured the security of the boxes and make sure that everyone can get to them. So, and this is a big issue because it's not only in rural areas where it can be a challenge to get to the one county location, even here in Franklin County, that's very populous. It can take a lot of time and money through gas or public transportation to get to Morse Road to drop it off. And so, this to me is just about trying to suppress turnout to protect his own party.
All right, a reminder, we have a nifty voter guide on our website. It has information on all the candidates and the issues, as well as details on how to vote, whether that's early in person, by mail, or in person on Election Day. Check it out at our website, wosu.org/voter guide. After stabilizing and even declining in recent weeks, new COVID cases are creeping up again. At the end of this week, Ohio was seeing some 1,500 to 1,800 cases a day. That's up from the roughly 1,000 cases a day Ohio had been seeing. The latest map has 18 counties in the red category. That's where there is a very high spread of coronavirus. The governor called the latest numbers a gut punch, and he blames large gatherings, weddings, funerals, and backyard parties.
People are not being careful. I mean, think about the tragedy. I mean, I can't fathom this, but think about the tragedy of people getting married and then two of the grandfathers are dead. I mean, we're not blaming anybody, but this has got to stop. This has just got to stop. I mean, these lives are valuable. These lives matter.
Laura Bischoff, pretty strong words from the governor there, but in that same time, he increased the number of folks who could go to Browns and Bengals games, and he's considering loosening the restrictions on bars and restaurants. Where do we stand?
Well, we haven't heard whether or not he's going to lift the 10 p.m. last call rule or not. He argued that the Browns could continue to abide by safety protocols with the higher numbers in the stands. And also the governor is traveling around the state and holding little mini press conferences to try and continue to push the issue that the COVID cases, the numbers are going in the wrong direction. The positivity rate, that's the percentage of cases that come back, the percentage of tests that come back positive is climbing. 96% of Ohioans now live in counties that are ranked either orange or red because of that signals a heavy spread. And so I think it's a delicate balance, and it has been from the get-go for the DeWine administration to balance between, keeping society going, having kids go to school, businesses be open, and yet try to control what's going on with this virus.
Bob Clegg, the governor seemed to be echoing what we heard Mike Pence say at the start of the show, that Mike Pence and the governor is relying on personal responsibility on the part of Americans or Ohioans to fight this pandemic. Is that the right way to fight a public health crisis where it can be spread throughout the community, one-on-one pleading with people to do the right thing?
Well, I mean, people are living their lives. So this is what you get when they do that. Now, the alternative is just shut everything down, which we did for March and April and good part of May, and just keep it shut down. We just, should have shut it down in March and kept it shut down. And what kind of damage to people would that have done with regards to jobs and, trying to live, trying to get food, it is a delicate balance, but I mean, people are going to live their lives. And I think the governor realizes that. And that's why he's saying, okay, I know you're going to have a wedding, just don't have a big one and don't invite your elderly grandparents to it. I mean, it's tough to tell people don't live your lives.
Morgan Harper, where is that balance? I mean, back in the spring, the governor did say no weddings over 10 people or whatever it was, no large weddings. But he doesn't seem reluctant. He seems reluctant to do that again.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're really seeing the limits of a philosophy of governing that relies on personal responsibility alone. Sure, there is a balance between, keeping businesses open and also protecting health. But I think we've established it, and the CDC has as well, in terms of wearing masks and keeping your distance from people as much as possible. But when we have a president who doesn't even follow these guidelines, isn't sending mixed messages, it's no wonder that people continue to act in ways that compromise the health of all of us.
Laura Bischoff, real quick, did the governor give any timeline of when he might make a decision on the bars and restaurants? That's important to a lot of those folks for their businesses.
It was my understanding he had a meeting with the Ohio Restaurant Association on Thursday, and a decision would be sometime soon.
So look for that soon. Of course, restaurants now, they're worried about it because it's getting chilly. So those outdoor patios, which we've all been enjoying, are going to be less enjoyable as the weather gets colder. All right, time now for our off-the-record parting shots. And Morgan Harper, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I probably sound like a broken record, but I mean, our democracy is at stake. So I really hope everybody can get out the vote. And at this point, I think we're beyond policy. It's just about making sure that we have a government moving forward.
Real quick, Morgan, follow up. you were a supporter of Bernie Sanders and the far left. Are they excited?
I didn't support anyone specifically for
Okay.
president,
All right.
actually. But no, I mean, I think that we've seen a lot of unity among Democrats to recognize that this is beyond policy. This is about making sure that we have someone who we can even attempt to hold accountable. And the current president has already shown he has no respect for the rule of law. So we've got to get to change here.
Bob Clegg, your final thought.
Well, I think what we've seen with all this early voting is that in the end, I think Ohio will probably get about half of their votes from early voting, and the other half will come from Election Day, which is much different than it usually is, because usually it's 25 to 30% early and the rest on Election Day.
So it'd be an interesting election night, to say the least, as we watch these votes come in. Laura Bischoff, your final thought.
Yeah, so 100 years ago, it was an all-Ohio race for president between James M. Cox, who was the founder of the Dayton Daily News, and Warren Harding, who was a publisher in Marion County. And Governor Mike DeWine paid tribute to this historic landmark at his press conference on Thursday, but he happened to gloss over Harding's extracurricular activities, such as the steamy love letters that he wrote to his mistress and the current pending legal fight to dig up Harding's remains with a reality TV crew in tow. So
Interesting. Yes, Fran DeWine had recipe of Warren Harding's favorite dish, the waffles. Apparently, his passion went beyond waffles. Let's just put it that way. Look it up. Anyway, also give moderators a break. I'm moderating a debate this week, congressional debate. It's a tough job. I think both Chris Wallace and Susan had done very well this week, and give them a break, and it's a thankless job. That's Columbus on the Record for this week. Susan Page. Check us out online, WOSU.org. For our panel, for our crew, I'm Mike Thompson. Have a good week.